It is a piece of potential evidence everybody is talking about online. The glove that the police almost missed. It was dropped, or it was thrown out outside the home where the 4 college students were stabbed to death in Moscow. And there is a good chance that it would still be there right now, but for a former homicide detective turned podcaster who noticed it while he was actually visiting the scene on Thanksgiving, which is 11 days after the murders. Chris McDonough is a veteran of the Oceanside, California Police Department, and currently he's the director with the National Cold Case Foundation. He's also co-host of the podcast, The Interview Room, and he is live with me tonight. Detective, it's so good to have you. First of all, I am shaking my head as I even think I'm doing this interview with you. Take me there. Tell me what happened. You literally showed up and looked down and said, hello, gentlemen, come over here. Have you seen this? Is that really how simple this was?
Yeah, it really was, Ashleigh. I mean, it was my wife and I, it was Thanksgiving Day. We happened to be up here in Idaho. And I said to her, I said, hey, let's just go over where that, situation's taking place at the university to get some tape. And we're walking up the street. And the first thing that caught my attention, to be honest with you, was all of the cars still parked on the property. And then I looked over and I saw there was an officer controlling the scene sitting in his vehicle. And I looked to the left and I saw that what appeared to be a glove. And I looked at my wife and I said, is that a glove? And she goes, yeah, I think it is. And so about where Brian was standing tonight, I walked over and looked over and sure enough, it was a glove. And I immediately got the attention.
You know what I'm going to do? I am going to, Chris, thank you for saying that. When we go back to Brian in a little bit, I'm going to actually ask him to walk me to the exact spot so that everybody who's watching right now gets the full perspective. Sometimes it's hard when you're watching through a one-dimensional TV screen, so I'm going to do that. In the meantime, help me with this one because you're the murder detective, but you're also the person who found it. What kind of glove was it and the significance of the kind of glove as pertains to a murder?
Well, I can't really tell what type of glove it is, if it's a male, female. And obviously the significance may be nothing, but it also could be very significant. There appeared to have snow on it, so I assumed it had been there for, quite some time, at least, before the earlier snowfall. I later learned there are photographs of that glove floating online, and you can clearly see it there. And, I was unaware of those at the time. And when I told the officer, I waved him over and I said, hey, you need to come take a look at this. And he walked over and his first words were, oh, wow. And I said, yeah, and I told him, I said, hey, I'm a retired homicide guy. You probably want to collect that, get your evidence people out here to do that. And he took some photographs of it, and I assumed that they, had collected it. I videotaped him doing it just in case, at least taking the photographs. But yeah, it was crazy. It was just sitting there.
And this is, to be clear, it's inside the crime tape. This was not something that you discovered outside the crime tape, but they weren't watching, they weren't looking for it. So they'd had 11 days to scour the outside of the property. And I need to remind our viewers that you're from California, where one of the biggest first cases of my career happened, and a bloody glove was the significant piece of evidence in O.J. Simpson's case, which is why we don't make light of something that's just maybe looks like garbage. Certainly that's just a couple dozen feet from the front door.
Yeah, I mean, the significance of it, is unknown at this point. Obviously, if it is involved, then it could be, very important. If it's not, then, at least you have it and you can put it into evidence just to say it's there. So, the officer, in my opinion, said he was going to bring the evidence folks to come collect it. And I hope they did that, to be honest with you.
So the other key part here is that you, as a homicide detective, you've seen the inside of a courtroom or two. And today the police were telling us part of the reason they're keeping information so close to the guest is to preserve the pristine nature of the prosecution, of the criminal procedure. So I could see a defense attorney watching our interview right now and saying, you didn't even see the most critical evidence, even inside the crime tape for over a week and a half. Like, you leave something too long and that becomes fodder for a defense later on as well. So it's a problem if you don't pick it up for the investigators. It's also a problem for the prosecutors. I'm going to just give you about 20 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. And 100%. I mean, and so you got to ask yourself, why were the cars still there for 2 or 3 weeks? And the first thing you do is you work the crime scene from the outside in. You don't work the crime scene from the inside out. And those cars should have been impounded within day 1 or day 2.
Yeah, I also thought that they should be looking at the GPS of all those cars, and you don't do that while they're parked. So that's fascinating. And you and I are going to have a longer conversation about working a case from the outside in. So this is your formal invitation back. Chris McDonough, thank you so much for being here tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.